Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of 4Fusion Friday. I almost said Friday morning at the Fun House, but I'm thinking it's not Friday morning and it's not Friday yet. Well, it's Friday when you guys are watching this, not when we're recording it, though. But yeah, 4Fusion Friday. It's the first Friday of every month. Good evening, gentlemen. How are
Good
you? We got
evening.
Eric Porter,
Howdy.
George Lamie in the house as always, and returning once again, Mr. Cone Beckham. What's going on, Cone?
Not a lot. Hanging out.
Good.
Yep.
Does everybody see the wonderful shirt that our esteemed guest is wearing today? He wore that in honor of me.
His magma. It's a little
Yes.
poke, a
Yeah.
little heat poke.
We had a little laughs about it before we started taping. So yeah, my one of my least favorite bands of all time, but I know people love them. That's totally cool. Totally cool. So we've got another fun show for you here today with four picks, a George's pick, or four albums in the four square George's pick, and then of course George is going to kick us all off with some new releases. So with all that being said, George, take it away.
All right, new releases. First one is Josh Meter, Tides of Time. Finally, debut from this immensely talented Aussie guitar player. Like many 20-something dudes, he's been squarely in the world of YouTube up until now. Um, this is a very good start to a recording career. The other guys, a keyboard player and a drummer, they both get spotlight. They're both great players. Um, both singles that have come out, Ultraviolet and the title track, they both kill, and they're both pretty representative of the album as a whole. You don't have any real valleys on this album. Meter, one of the most talented players around right now. I know you've heard this too, Eric. What are your thoughts?
Same. Kid's incredible. And I really dig the clean. I mean, he's got this clean, crisp tone that he uses. And I think maybe the title track or the last track on the record, there's a little hair to his tone. He has a little, but he's killer. He's a great player. Like you said, he's got a lot of videos out on YouTube, and I, I don't want to say in that, but kind of that Mancuso, the Mateo, he's got that kind of vibe to him, but there's something about him that it's a little different. So it's not that, same, but smooth player, love that clean tone. I did do a review. There's a review up on the site as well. So uh, I think I was a 4 star for this one. Good record.
It's a good one. Yeah, I
He's
went.
got a little straight jazz in him, and he also has a little like Tigran Hamasyan in him. He's got a little a little wiggle to his game. It's pretty interesting, his combination. Um, Next up, the Haas Company, Celestial Latitude. This is part of a 4 volume set that they've been doing. For my money, this one is my new favorite. It's the featured player on this one is Frank Amali, but it's not really because of him. Of course he's good on here, but it's not like he's dominating it for me. I just think the songs on this one are a little bit more consistent. Not a bad song on this one actually. So if you've if you have the first two of the series, or even if you don't, check in with this one because I think this is a really good record too. You check it out yet, Eric?
I did. I probably only have 2 listens. I love the Goodman record, so this one I got to give a little more time to absorb. But like you said, I think it's at least it's definitely on the level with that. I know you like it better. I'll get there probably at some point with Frank on it, but I even the first one I think I haven't listened. The fourth one is out too, right, George? I think.
Yeah.
And I haven't listened to that one at all, but I can't wait to dive into this one full time.
Is that kind of their MO to have like a big name guest on every album, like a featured soloist? Yeah, okay.
Who's on
Kind
the
of.
fourth one?
Well, that's the next one. Haas Company, Song for Mimi, featuring a multi-instrumentalist named Samuel Halkvist. I don't know this guy. Uh, Plays guitar and is doing some other stuff here, but primarily a guitar player. Um, this is also a sound record, but for me, the least of the four, just because some of the cuts in the middle of the record are a little bit low key for me. They don't quite hit the mark, but yeah, the 4 volumes are out now. It's scant information on these guys. Like, I think if you might be able to get hard copies, but I don't even know who to get a hold of. It's hard to even find credits for these things. I still don't have full credits for any of them. So good luck, but they are on all the streamers and worth checking out, definitely.
Mhm.
How many of you heard, Cone?
I heard the Goodman one only so far.
Okay.
I haven't taken the plunge and downloaded the whole thing. I've just streamed it a few times, but yeah, it's great. Everybody's playing is killer. I'm gonna get it eventually. Probably get them all at the same time.
That'd be
Yeah,
convenient.
way to do
OD on the Haas company, why not?
it.
But that's it on new releases.
Yeah, I haven't heard that Josh Meter either, so that sounds like it's up my alley too. So very
Oh
cool.
yeah, that's a must.
Great
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah,
Cool,
I think it was $10 on his Bandcamp page or something like that. It was pretty inexpensive.
cool.
So the square this month, I decided to do something, shake it up a little bit. If you use different themes, you're going to get different kinds of releases, that you end up talking about, and it's a refreshing change for us and hopefully for people out there. So I thought kind of a obtuse idea would be number bands. So you got 3 p.m. from 1980. You got Third World Electric, 2009. You got The Four Corners, Portal of Gold. That is 2016. And then you got Three Crows from 2012, self-titled. So we'd like to lead off with Eric. He gives us a good start. I think there's good guitar. Let me know. What's your number 4?
Oh, you made this as always, George, tough. I think with this one, in doing the rankings, because they're all pretty different from each other, it really made it difficult doing the compares. There's definitely good guitar, so thank you for that, as always. I'm going with the Four Corners at number 4. And the reason why, and I've almost backed off on this a few times, is they do come off a little light at times. But upon repeat listens, a lot of those songs that initially, I don't want to say I dismissed, but maybe where it was kind of so-so on, if you really sit and listen to them, they end up having some pretty smoking parts in this. I mean, the guitar playing is great in this. I like the keyboards. Times maybe some questionable sound choices or patches used for the keyboards, but overall, really tight playing. I've been putting down my favorites. So my favorite tracks on this are Midnight Interstate, which is the opener, absolutely smoking guitar track. The Great Flight, which kind of comes in later. Again, the guitar and keys are just amazing. I really like when the whole band kind of locks in. And that one, I think, even had a little Latin flair to it. And I think the title track, Portal of Gold itself, was just, and it closes the record. So it kind of closed out on absolute fire. And the songs that I'm talking about, one is, I believe, like Miracle Child. As I started to listen to that, I'm going, boy, this is kind of, it's a little light, it's a little so, and all of a sudden the guitar kicks in towards the end and it just rips. So I think this is a record you really have to listen to, and there's only so much time in the month. It was starting to float for me from moving up a rank. And again, putting it at 4 has nothing to do with liking or disliking it. It's a really good record. There's just for me, there were some questionable choices, maybe keyboard patch wise, maybe a little too light in spots, but overall, it's really a good record. And the guitar playing is killer. So, but that's my number 4, the Four Corners.
What do you think, Cone? What's your 4?
My number 4 is an album I had not heard before you introduced me to it. It's the oldest of these. It's 3 p.m. Better late than never. Good title for me, I guess. I actually love the album. It's a great album, and I guess it's Jerry Peak's his project before he joined up with Steve Morse.
Yep.
So I had never heard it before this. It strikes me as one of those local bands that did their thing independently, and then in their scene, everybody ate it up and loved them, but they never really got the exposure, you know, nationally or whatever. And then, Jerry moved on. It sounds like they're all still teaching, but I mean, it's a killer album. It's a great fusion album. I do hear a lot of 70s influences, I hear some dregs in there, especially on the first tune, Banana Daiquiri. A lot of like unison bass and guitar, dual guitar, I guess, stuff happening. Um, and then it's a mixed bag. It's like the second tune, I guess you call it Knuff, or maybe it's just Nuff. I don't know. But that one was kind of a little bit like Brecker Brothers, early Spyro Gyra is kind of a little bit smoothish for me. Um, but good, not also a little bit of early, maybe like No Mystery Return to Forever, I heard. Blues Epilogue, okay, it's a blues tune. It's got some interesting changes, but it's the weakest tune on the album, in my opinion. Um, One Step Ahead, again, they change it up and it sounds a little like Lee Ritenour to me, or, that kind of California kind of studio jazz thing. A River of Years started off like Rush and then moved into some Mahavishnu arpeggiations, uh, only to be bombarded by a huge Jocko fretless bass break in the middle. So it was pretty cool. I liked it. The best tune on there is the last tune for me, Better Late Than Never, which I thought was pretty epic. That reminded me quite a bit of Al Di Meola's first album, Land of the Midnight Sun to some degree. And also there's a couple guitar breaks where he sounds kind of Holdsworthian to me. Some
Yeah.
of his melodic choices, which was really surprising. I'm not saying the album's a copycat album because it's not, but you can definitely figure out where they're coming from and where the influences are. And at that time, back in 80, it makes sense. But again, great album. I'm glad you introduced me to it and I dig it. I'm listening to it. So cool stuff.
Pete, which way you going?
So for me, I had one like clear number one, and really only one of the four was I familiar with beforehand. And then the other three to rank them were kind of difficult because they're all good. All these albums are really good. But I'm gonna go with Cone here. 3 p.m. is my number four as well. It's a little on the short side compared to some of these other albums. It's not kind of as much meat on the bones as the others, but I think it's great to hear Jerry Peake because quite frankly, I had never heard him in anything else other than the early Steve Morse stuff. I think rhythmically, it's a really cool album. I really like this John Wheelis player, guitar player. He's really good. I agree 100% on One Step Ahead. It's kind of like Rittenhour, Benson, Carlton type of thing, which I love all three guys, so I was totally cool with that. It's got a great vibe. Rivers of Years, more great guitar soloing. I think Better Late Than Never is terrific. That could be my favorite track on the album, and I love that Jerry Peake is just kind of like bubbling away underneath the surface of everything that's going on. Yeah, blues epilogue, it's kind of straightforward. The guitar playing is good. Nuff, I like Nuff. I think it's pretty good. There's really no bad songs on here. I just think that there's maybe better stuff on the other albums, but it's still really good, and I'm glad I had the chance to hear it because I never even heard of this before. So good stuff.
We're going. Um, yeah, I agree with Cone. Banana Daiquiri gives me that Dregs feel. Great bass solo from Jerry Peake on that one. Nuff, it's got an acoustic guitar. I get kind of a island Caribbean kind of thing off of that one.
Yeah.
Which like was a huge 70s fusion trope that you really don't hear anymore. Nobody does that feel anymore, it seems like. Blues Epilogue kind of struggles to escape the blues tropes. I agree with Cone, the least successful song on here. One Step Ahead, I got on my notes that it has a Steely Dan feel. That's what I got out of it. So same thing, Rittenhour, same neck of the woods. River of Ears is my favorite. I hear a little Bruford in that, especially in the solo section. And Better Late Than Never, I also love that, and I think that also has a little Bruford, mostly in the leads, like Cone said. He's trying to evoke Holdsworth a little bit, which is kind of interesting because the rest of the whole way, there's nothing like that. He's kind of more of a straight picker, but I think it's a good album. I've got a boot from after, and they actually got better, so it's a real shame that they never did anything else, but this is one I would say Mr. Golden should license. I mean, I think people would get this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
People into this era would like this. So
Yeah.
I'd buy a physical copy for sure. Yeah.
Yep.
yeah, there's a ton of stuff that gets reissued that's no better than this. So I don't know. But
We'll
yeah,
work on them.
my number four. Eric, what's your three?
I'm going with 3 p.m. at 3. I love Jerry Peak. I remember hearing the introduction, being a teenage guitar player, and Steve Morris always graced the covers or wrote articles. So Steve Morris was constantly in Guitar Player. And I went out and bought the introduction, and I just remember like listening for guitar and going, that bass player is incredible. And that always stuck with me for some reason. The introduction, as much as I love Dave LaRue, I always wondered what happened to Jerry Peak. How does a guy like this just kind of disappear? I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I've heard anything. I'm sure he's done stuff, but I don't know that I've heard anything he did outside of Steve Morris until you put this in the square. And I had not heard this before. I'd heard the name 3 p.m. and associated with Jerry. And you guys pretty much covered everything. My favorite tracks were Banana Daiquiri. I put the same thing down, that I got a very Dregs-like feel, smoke and guitar. Um, River of Ears, that one, another that's like shredding. And I actually like the slower sections. I thought it kind of worked well. And the closer, Better Late Than Never. And again, where this one, George, I'm sure you sent me your bootleg as well, because I texted George and I'm like, we're only doing the first 6 songs for this, right? And he's like, yeah. And you're right. I think there's some live stuff in there, and I thought they were just smoking. I mean, had that been included on the record, this one might have been higher. Like you guys said, it's kind of a short record, 6 songs, but I just love Jerry's playing. I've always loved it, and wish there had been more from these guys. And we'll get on Mr. Golden about licensing this one. I'd love to have a hard copy of this.
It's 34 and a half minutes only.
Yeah.
But 1980, that's not that out of the realm. So
No, that's true.
That was before CDs, right? So it was vinyl, right?
Right.
Yeah.
what do you got at three, Cone?
My number three was Eric's number four, Four Corners. I put at number three. Again, a great album. It's hard to rank these four, but this one uh gives me a strong chick electric band vibe for sure. It's really well produced. Um, it also gives me at times a little bit of a like a Japanese like Cassiopeia Prism vibe a little bit. The first tune, Midnight Interstate, was one of my favorites. That's definitely right up the Electric Band alley to me. Um, Orbiting Hands I thought was kind of cool and quirky composition. The Great Fight reminds me very much of like Kim to the Seventh Gallery chick. Very, that Eric mentioned that Latin vibe that was happening in there. Starts out with a really nice acoustic piano thing that just, it screamed Chick Corea to me. Not that this is derivative either. I'm not saying they're copycats. And the thing about this album is like what Eric was saying, to me, compositionally, it's strong and there are great players and there are great solos, but like it's more about the compositions. And then I think, with repeated listening, I would start noticing stuff that really stood out quite a bit more. Um, like the ninth track, Motions, that reminded me very much of like kind of like Cassiopeia, kind of a ballady thing. Portal of Gold, I think, was the last tune and the kind of the epic ending, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's I went back and listened to the first one because I hadn't listened to the first one in a while. I think I like the first one a little bit more. It's a little more raw, I think. The guitar
Exactly.
tone is a little,
Would you say overproduced almost, Cone? I mean,
the first or the second.
the one we're doing tonight.
Yeah, the second one's definitely more produced than the
Yeah.
first. And I hesitate to say overproduced, but yeah, I mean, okay, Chick and GRP stuff, that like Light Years, that's what some of this reminds me of, is like the second Chick album, Light Years. It's
Mhm.
a, funk forward, shorter tunes, catchy melodies, but I mean, overall, great album. I think I like the first one a little bit better, but I don't know. Have they done anything since this one?
They all appear on the drummer's solo album from a couple years ago, which
Ah,
is so similar. I don't know why they just didn't put it out as Four Corners, but
huh.
other than that, not that I know of.
Yeah. Well, it's my number three, and it's great. I mean, it's a great album. I enjoy it quite a bit, but um, the other two that I'm gonna pick, I liked a little more.
The way it goes.
Pete, your three?
I'm gonna go with Third World Electric, Kilimanjaro Sound Brew. It's funny enough. I mean, all the guys that are on this album, I mean, I know well, and I follow. I've never heard of this album before. You got half of the Flower Kings are on here. Dave Weckl's on here. I mean, it's Roy Stolt, Jonas Reingold, and the other drummer, I forget his name. It's just a great cast of characters, and holy cow, like big time Jocko era Weather Report vibes on this record. Since I'm playing, I'm like, is this like a long lost Weather Report album, right? It's nothing bad with that. I love Weather Reports. I think it's really cool. I mean, Waterfront Migration is so good. I mean, Jonas Reingold is such a great bass player, and he sounds right at home playing this sort of thing. Really, really good. And this guy, Carl Martin Almquist, or Almqvist, however he says his name, on sax, he's amazing. Really good. Cape Town Traffic is a great, funky tune, great groove. Love the sax, love the keys. Downbeat Jakar is another really good one. Lava Juggler. But like, I get like, I don't know, halfway, three quarters of the way through this album, and I'm kind of like, where the hell's Roy Stolt? There's almost like no guitar on here other than like some comps here and there. And then like on the last two tracks, Tin Can Drums and Children of the Future, there he is. So it's like you wait till like the last two songs before you get any real like guitar soloing or anything like that. But overall, it's a really nice album. A lot of groove, a lot of tasty playing, and I think if you're a Weather Report fan, this is almost like a long lost Weather Report album. Really good. I wish there was a little bit more guitar fire in spots, but other than that, I think the songs are memorable and it's very enjoyable. So yeah, it's my number three.
Yeah, given all these names, I wondered if maybe you had it. Like you had come across it somewhere.
Yeah, never heard of it. It's
Yeah,
like
me either.
I'm shocked because I mean, what year was this again?
2009.
Yeah, I mean, I was totally immersed in all things the Flower Kings in 2009, so I don't know how I missed it, but I did. So
And I'm not, but I think I probably went in through Lael Larson because I love that guy. He's one of the best keyboard players around.
yeah, oh yeah, he's great on here.
All right, my number three is Four Corners. One issue, this album is long. It's 74 and a half minutes. I think they could have probably standed to lop a couple tunes off. That maybe accounts for having trouble you guys getting your ears around all of it because it's a slog. Um, and uh, the differences in the writing is not that great. I mean, they're very much a similar style, so maybe it's hard to say, oh, that's the one with because they're all pretty in the same kind of thing. Um, the ones I really love is King's Highway. That's a really good tune. Chick vibe on that one. Nice roads. Um, the Do is kind of a middle ballad, a little bit smooth for me. I think that's one of the ones they probably could have lopped off. Table for Two, I love. That's a funky one. The Great Flight. I hear Electric Band on that one big time. Um, My favorite song though is the closer, the title track, Portal of Gold. Do believe they did a production video for that, like a studio playthrough.
Yeah. Yep.
That's just a fantastic song.
Yeah.
Um, I think there's one tone that the keyboard uses that I kind of call the Doogie Howser patch. It's kind of got that kind of like just light in the loafers 90s thing. I don't know. That when he plays that tone, I'm a little bit bothered, but other than that, yeah, like the first album, it's really strong. Um, but there are a couple songs where I lose focus, so that's why I shoved it at number three. Eric, you too?
I'm going with Third World Electric, and I'm with Pete. I had no clue. I didn't know this album anyway, but I'm listening to it, and I was listening, never looked at the credits probably till about a week ago. And I saw Ronnie Stolt and Jonas Reingold. I'm like, really? Never, I guess I didn't know, obviously didn't know they did this or that it was something they were into. And I got to say, Reingold is an absolute monster on this record. Ferocious bass playing on this. I mean, that's really, as I started listening to this, I might say, even though this didn't make my number one, compositionally, I think this might be my favorite. I thought the songs were really, really good. I like the middle of the record. I liked Downbeat Dakar, Lava Juggler. I know Pete mentioned that one. I thought was absolutely terrific. That had some. I think I wrote here finally some guitar solos as we get to track five. But the unison playing in that one is really good. And I also like that Tin Can Robots had a really cool vibe, ripping guitar. But Rheingold just stands out. I mean, I love the horns too, but as you're listening and I'm listening to this, like every track has just a killer bass line. And I think even Children of the Future, the closer, is another one where the bass playing is just simply on fire. So that one surprised me because I think on first listen, kind of like Pete said, I think out of the gate, it was like, geez, there's not much guitar on this one, but I was really digging the horns and stuff. And this one probably was the biggest grower for me. I really like this record, and again, just like Pete, really surprised when I saw who was playing on it. But I guess I shouldn't be, because they do this perfectly. It's really a really terrific record. I really enjoyed this one.
It makes you wonder why they didn't do a follow-up, you know?
Agreed. Well, I mean, unless it was sales, I have no idea. Otherwise, why they wouldn't? Because it's terrific. I'll be seeking that one out.
Phone, you're two?
Yeah, my number two would have been my number one up until a couple weeks ago. I'm going with Third World Electric as my number two. I am a huge Weather Report fan. They are my favorite band and have been since I was probably 18 years old, and I'm 59 now. So, all eras, I love everything they did, even the early, really kind of free stuff all the way up through the very end, the kind of heavily synth Zawinul-ish, the reason it's number two and not number one is because, yeah, it's kind of a Weather Report tribute. I mean, it's not a Weather Report copy, although it kind of sort of is in a lot of ways, but it's a tribute and it feels like a tribute to me. And so I give them props for that, but it's not as original as the number one choice for me. So, um, I think you guys said a lot about what I would say too. I mean, I hear Mysterious Traveler in that Cape Town traffic. I hear uh, Kilimanjaro Secret Brew, same thing. It's like Mysterious Traveler. It's like that tune from 8:30 with Jocko on bass, and Jonas is just, man, he's killer. And great command of the fretless bass, and he does the Jocko thing. He doesn't exactly copy some of the real trademarky Jocko licks.
No.
But he has that sound, and you could hear it being Jocko, just not playing his trademark Jocko licks. But I mean, it's killer. The only other that Tin Can tune, reminded me actually more of Alfonso Johnson era Weather Report, like tail spinning, than Jocko. It's like the bass is kind of fuzzy, kind of gnarly, um, very aggressive. Um, I also got a little bit of a kind of a, the band Sixun or Sisun, Sixun, a little bit of that. Also a little bit of kind of middle period Yellow Jackets taste in there too, I guess. But I ate it up. I loved it. I had it probably a year after it came out. And I listened to Flower Kings quite a bit. I don't know how I discovered this though, because I wasn't in the loop. Somebody probably played it for me and said, "Listen to this. Doesn't it sound like Heavy Weather or Black Market?" And I'm like, "Yep, it does." And then I went out and got it. So hadn't listened to it in a while. Great to revisit it. Number two, killer album.
He?
So the difference between my number two and my number one, I really think my number one pick has the better compositions. But my number two has some pretty spectacular playing on it. They both do, actually. I'm going to go with Three Crows in my number two spot. I mean, you have some amazing playing and players on here. You got Virgil Donati's on here, Brett Garsett, Marco Miniman, Mauro Ruiz. Very cool cover on there. Whole bunch of other players. Chris Buck, obviously on bass. Um, I mean, Hika here comes again, smoking stuff, blazing guitars, popping bass. I mean, all the shit you'd like. A great synth solo. The drums are just absolutely slamming. Denaya Duara, I get some Tribal Tech vibes on that. Electric piano, ripping guitars. Little Boy and Fat Man, great tune. Kershey Val Kilmer, pretty intense. There's great bass playing on this album, just ripping guitar everywhere you go. It's a couple of the tracks was Andius Maximus had some pretty heavy sections, like almost like metal. Like and there you get that on a couple spots on the album. On the downside, like Last Call and a couple other places on the album, the songs just kind of meander for me. They're very atmospheric and I don't feel like they almost feel like they're like sort of like improv pieces. There's composed stuff, and then there's other pieces that just kind of for me just kind of don't really go anywhere. But man, there's great stuff all around. You got the one weird song Pathway on here, which is like a hard rock song with vocals. That doesn't really fit for me either. But I think there's some spectacular playing on here. You could argue some of the best playing, as far as like soloing might be on this album across all these records. But I just feel like my number one, I like the compositions much, much better. So, yeah, Three Crows is number two for me.
My two is Third World Electric. Um, yeah, maybe it helps that I don't come from being a huge Weather Report fanatic, so this all feels more fresh to me, but I've always loved this. And also I just love the three singular players of Rheingold and Lael Larson and Dave Weckl. I mean, putting those three together, they could probably do polka album and I like it. It's just they're all just so good, so distinctive. Not just good players. A lot of guys are good, but they're all very distinctive. I can pick any of those guys out of a lineup real simply. Um, Waterfront Migration, super memorable melody and a great keyboard solo by Larson. He's he's not busy enough. I mean, I know he's in Karmakonic. I mean, Flower Kings and Karmakonic, but he's got to do more fusion stuff. Ode to Joe is the one song I'd probably skip. It's kind of a mid-rangey ballad. But Cape Town, that's a funky tune, great bass groove. Downbeat Dakar, this where it really starts to heat up. It's another super memorable melody. The sax player, I don't know that I love him as a soloist, but his melodies, man, so good. Um, and you got some real infectious grooving on that tune too. Like somebody said, I think Cone, there's a good bass groove in like every song on this album. At least one part where he just decides, I'm gonna play some great groove here. Lava Juggler, probably my favorite tune. Great Rhodes work on that one. Drumming by Weckl, drum breaks, killer. And Tin Can Robot and Children of the Future, like Pete said, that's where you hear more of Stolt. I don't know if Stoltz cut out for Fusion. He's kind of, I might pick a different guy, but I get that he was probably in on it from the beginning. Um, Children of the Future is kind of like the epic on here, almost 10 minutes. And it's got like that epic feel, it's like more of a prog feel. But again, more groove on this one. Piano from Larson and just more a killer, another more killer soloing by Weckl. I kind of wish Weckl was on the whole thing, even though Zoltan Soros is a good drummer also, but it's hard to not want more Weckl. So I wish they did another one, but as it stands, this would be my number two.
I think, now that we've been talking about it for a little bit, you have to wonder if Royna was just kind of thrown onto this as the name guy to get eyes on this album, because I don't get much of a presence from him at all up until the back end of the record. And you're absolutely right. He's just playing normal Royna Stoltz stuff. He's obviously not a jazz or fusion guy. So I you have to wonder if he just agreed to kind of do this because it was kind of like a all on the Flower Kings family, and you'll get more people interested if he's on it. So
Yeah, maybe it's like a comfort thing. They're comfortable working together. So,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. Hey, you're here. Want to play on it? Oh, okay.
yeah, sure.
Have you guys heard Weather Report's last studio album, This Is This? You know who the guest, it's Carlos Santana on guitar on some tracks, right? And kind of it works to some degree for me, but Wayne is almost non-existent on that album.
Yeah.
Um, I happened to see the band that was called Weather Update right before that album released, which was basically Weather Report without Wayne, but with Steve Kahn on guitar. And I really wish they would have recorded an album together because they played some of the classic, later Weather Report stuff, but with Steve on guitar. It was really interesting.
Ooh,
Um,
he's such a good guitar player too.
it was totally cool, and he's a super nice guy too. So yeah,
That sounds up my alley. I think I
yeah.
can check that out.
Let's hear about your number one, Eric.
My number one is Three Crows, Chris Buck, and I kind of agree with Pete a little bit on a couple of the first listens. I was like, obviously they're tight with the playing, but I'm like, it's kind of a loose feel at times as well. I think I want to say like Curse You, Val Kilmer, which probably is the best title of our uh, show this week. But really loose feel to that. Great guitar vibe, almost like a jam vibe on that one. And I love the keys and bass. Uh, Buck's a great bass player. But I think, with this one, um, I like the middle of the record from that probably track three, Little Boy, three, four, five, and six. You get the title track in there, which is another great guitar bass kind of showcase. And there's that Ondius Maximus, which is it's just like a really precise playing. I don't know if that's Donati or not, George.
No,
Uh,
it's Marco Miniman.
it's okay.
Yeah.
And great soloing over the top of that. Now, you'll know where I go with Pathway, the vocal, no thank you, and the talking section is dumb. I almost skipped that. And then all of a sudden I'm like, holy cow, there's a there's a great guitar solo in there. I'm glad I didn't skip over the track. Because it kind of sent me like, oh, we're at the end of the record and this is going sideways a little bit. But and then the closer's kind of more of an atmospheric with Buck kind of taking lead on that one. But I really enjoyed this and I thought the guitar was just outstanding throughout most of this. So that really kind of brought it up for me as we were listening. So that is my number one.
Talk more about it, Cone.
Yeah, it's my number one too. I hadn't heard it before you dropped it on me. So
Well,
it was new to me. Um, and yeah, I mean a lot of it's the most unique of the four records to me. It's the most kind of distinctively like different than anything I've ever heard. So that gave it some points. Um, and Chris Buck, I'd never heard him play bass before, and the guy's a monster, right? So points for that too. Um, the my favorite tunes probably Curse You, Val Kilmer. That kind of it almost starts out with like this bebop-ish head with the bass and a lot of chromatic stuff happening, and then at one point they break into this straight walking jazz thing, right? They do that for like 8 bars, and then they switch to kind of like more of a bluesy. There's a sense of humor there, I think. Obviously, with the title, right? They're saying something. I don't know what. Um, yeah, Hicka, the first tune. He slaps, but he slaps in a really unique way. I don't know another bass player who slaps the bass with that kind of attack or sound. He's not hitting octaves all the time. The closest thing I could come to would be like a Stu Ham thing almost. There's a little bit of that in his playing, I think. Um, the the uh, Andius Maximus tune and also the Dunia Duaric tune both remind me of they're more through composed, I think, like Miniman, and also remind me of some of that Alex Majestic 24 Tales album or whatever that album was. They're disjointed and angular compositions, but interesting in their own way. Um, yeah, Pathway, it reminds me a little bit of one of the vocal tunes on Metal Fatigue, It's like maybe not quite as good. It's a little bit of a drop. Last Call is also kind of it's a nice way to end an album, I guess, but it sounds like a guy in a bar at 2 in the morning playing his fretless, you know. But it's cool, and I like the way he scats when he plays sometimes too, and I guess that's him singing the lead on Pathway because
Yeah.
he's got a really kind
High
of
voice, right?
high voice, yeah. But I like the scatting; it's pretty cool. And yeah, it's Otmaro Ruiz's Rhodes solo on Little Boy and Fat Man is pretty great, and the synth solo on the first tune. And that first tune, the architecture of it, the way it starts out and then the guitar comes in, and then you start hearing the keyboards come in about halfway through, and then it just kind of falls into this big fretless bass solo kind of sliding out into the ether. It's really interesting. So, very cool album. I don't know if I should be digging around for more Chris Buck stuff to check out. Maybe I should. There's this Progosaurus thing I heard of, which I've not heard. So I should probably go find that and listen to it, I guess. But
There's a second Three Crows, but it's mostly vocal. So
oh,
I
thank you
would,
for telling me that.
yeah, I wouldn't go for it, but
Don't go there.
that's
Got
me.
it. Got it.
Pete, you're number one.
Yeah, go ahead and say it. I'm the odd one out today. I'm a big fan of both Four Corners albums. I like both of them a lot. And I've listened to this and the first one quite a bit in recent months, and I was happy that you picked it. I just find I love their compositions. I think yeah, it's a long album, but the melodies are there. I mean, I'm a big, huge Electric Band fan. I love Chick. I love Return to Forever. I get similar type vibes all throughout this album. The way they compose their songs and there's just fiery playing everywhere you go. I like the light stuff. I like the more aggressive stuff. It's all great. I mean, this guy Ike Thompson is a hell of a guitar player, but
Mhm.
the whole band is great. I mean, Clarence Hill, great keyboard player. He's obviously knows probably studied Chick most of his life. King's Highway, so good. Orbiting Hands is super groovy. There's blazing solos everywhere, and it's just the melody is really nice earworm. I love it. Table for Two is kind of playful. Sounds like 80s Electric Band. I love 80s Electric Band. I like all Electric Band, so I got no issues with that. Through His Eyes is really good. I hear a little bit on The Great Fight. The guitar to me sounds like a mix of Demiola and Gambali. Got no issues with that. And the title track just completely rips to
Yeah.
start to finish. I mean, I really, really like this album a lot. And it's just songs are so memorable. The melodies are great and the playing is just ferocious, but tasty when it needs to be. So that it was an easy number one for me.
I'll go with the boys, Three Crows. For in the end, mostly for the reason that Cone said, this is the most different to me. I don't feel like this sounds like anything else. Maybe because of the individuals put together. I don't know. Chris Buck's a different kind of writer. Um, Haika, the great, cool slap line. Wicked solo by Brett Garsed. Again, another guy used to play on a lot of records, now kind of doesn't. That kind of sucks. Dunia Jawara's got the wicked drum breaks from Virgil. And a nice slinky guitar solo from Chris Taylor. That's a guy Mike Jacobs has been bugging me to get his album into a square at some point. His album's very different though. I'm not sure where I would put it, but he's like a soundscape guy. He's one of those guys that
Is that
really takes.
Nocturnal? Nocturnal? Is that the
Yeah,
album? I
it's
love
a
that freaking album. I love that album.
it's killer, but it's like so singular.
Yeah, it's unique. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. But and that kind of comes through in this track. It's got his vibe on it. Yeah, Little Boy and Fat Man. You got the unusual unison there with the scat vocal and the bass solo. That's cool. I like that also. Garcet again with a couple cool solos down the end of that one. Kirsty Val Kilmer is kind of an up-tempo tune. Great keyboard solo from George Whitty. I love his patches on this album. He's got some really cool patches. Three Crows, one of my favorites also. Andius is the first of the two tunes with Marco, another great keyboard solo from Whitty. Pathway, I actually think it's a well-composed song, and the vocal melody is good, but Chris Buck's voice, no, just no. I thought it was a girl the first time I heard it, but I wasn't reading the credits. I had it on. I'm like, what is this chick? And you look and it's him, and it's like, oh wow. I I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me. And yeah, Pathway is kind of a step down. It's kind of like one of these take you off the album kind of tunes that people like to do. Kind of a missed opportunity to have another song there, but by that time I'm already well into this album. I mean, I think it's really good, pretty different. So it was just enough to be my number one. So the George's pick. Um, project called Two Mars. You have twin brothers from Russia here, Fyodor and Farko Dosimov. Fyodor was in a band called Impact Fuse that was one and done, and Farko most recently was playing with Michael Shreve. Um, he's a bass player, and they get mostly Chris Coleman and Damian Schmidt on drums here, although there's a couple other guys. Um, what do you think, Eric?
Well, I think Fyodor belongs in my Jerry DeVilliers Jr. Hall of Fame because he is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Wow, what a player. So I have to point out though, when I played Come Closer, I'm like, huh, did George give me a Michael Jackson album to
Exactly.
listen to?
I was like, what the fuck is this?
Let me
But
say,
I thought I was listening to the wrong album. I'm like, wait a minute.
exactly, I
let me
thought
just
the
say I
same
knew that
thing.
was going to happen.
But let me tell you something. Stay on point because that guitar solo is
Yeah.
phenomenal. I heard that and I'm like, how can this be in the, like hearing Van Halen and Beat It or something? I'm like, that is an amazing solo. So I was like, all right, I'm kind of locked in. And then the second song is kind of laid back. I wasn't into the rapping part, whatever was going on there. So I'm like, I ended up liking the first one. The second one, I'm like, and I'm like, that's kind of weird for George to kind of throw these two vocal things. But then you hit track three, Quasar, and I think from there, this thing, not that it, like I said, I was really impressed with Come Closer once I got over the vocal part. But you've got Quasar, which I've got my favorite tracks, and I've got like six of them. Uh, Abundance is another good one, which the guitar playing is fantastic, and that takes on a cleaner tone. Um, and I think from there the album just kind of takes off. It's again, and you said his brother is the bass player. The bass playing is great on this. Warlock, it's almost like metalish, right? Very heavy drums, the rhythm guitar. Again, great lead guitar work. I think Music Box is the one that's another one that's kind of mellow. It starts, you get some good bass and keys, but then good Lord, the guitar kicks in and it's monster playing on both the guitar and the bass. Uh, Disclosure was crazy. The bass was killing it in that one. That one I listened to, it's like the bass line's constantly moving and constantly going. And the guitar is just going off in that. So this one, I'll tell you, George, you caught me off guard, but this thing took off. It's absolutely terrific. It's a great record. Guitar players, you got to hear this guy. I don't, like you said, George, I know Impact Fuse. I don't know if there's anything else he's done, but he's just fantastic. And again, the songs are great. Anyone who likes heavy rock guitar stuff, and I know we're talking fusion, but this guy will blow your mind. So definitely check him out.
Yeah, before Impact Fuse, there was another one and done called Alco Trio. Him and Anton David are in that,
Ah, okay.
and David is in Impact Fuse, and so is Damian Schmidt. They're both one and dones, unfortunately. To me, this band's better than both of those two bands, but what do you think, Colin?
Yeah, this is an intense high energy album all the way through, in my opinion. It's a little long, but it did keep my interest. Um, uh, why start an album with not one but two vocal tunes? I don't know. I got a little bit of like a Dirty Loops vibe on the first tune, you know? And I actually first was like, my initial reaction, you guys know what my initial reaction was. But the more I listen to it, I'm like, listen to the stuff they're playing underneath it, man. It's pretty
Right.
crazy. It's pretty on fire. And then the second tune, Locking, um, starts out with that kind of horn section, and it's kind of a more of a slow burner funk thing, almost like a mid like a Tower Power or something. I don't know. Chicago maybe something.
Yeah.
Then they drop the rap in there. It's okay. I mean, I didn't hate it. But it's really, like Eric said, track three where it really ramps up on you. Crunchy, aggressive. My favorite tunes, Abundance, which is kind of had that kind of Middle Eastern Arabic feel to it. Very rhythmic and very cool. Ecliptic, which reminded me of Matheny a little bit, like some of the like I don't know, Are You Going With Me or some of that stuff. It's kind of a little harmonica at the beginning, and then this kind of atmospheric build, like a Matheny tune. Um, Amulet reminded me a little of some Stern composition, Mike Stern composition, and that crazy envelope filter bass, funk bass thing happening at the beginning was really cool. This guy Farco is a monster too. I mean, Theodore is definitely a monster. There's no doubt, but Farco is a monster player, man. And I mean, great, he's playing with Shreve, but he's in the upper echelon in my opinion. He's great. Um, what else? Disclosure, another killer tune, cool trumpet sounds in that. To Mars reminding me a little bit of Return to Forever, kind of an epic, little bit of an epic thing. Um, Song for Holly was a ballad, but I liked it. I mean, there are no, even the two vocal tracks, which yes, they're off-putting at first, but I I I listened to them. I didn't fast forward after the first couple of times. And yeah, there's a great guitar solo in that first one too. So really interesting album. Never heard of it before. I heard Impact Fuse and I've heard Alco Trio too. But had no idea about this until George dropped it on me. So definitely cool stuff. Good album.
You like it too, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo what both of them have said. Yeah, I was dumbfounded completely with those first two tracks, but man, then all of a sudden, like this guy comes in, and I'm like, "Holy Steve Vai meets Nuno Bettencourt," and he's just blazing away, and I'm like, "Jesus," I mean, Eric said it perfectly. Once Quasar hits, it doesn't let up for the whole rest of the album. And yeah, the bass playing is great, but man, this guy is just the guitar player is just shredding up a storm, and it's tasty stuff. I mean, yeah, Amulet is good. There's some good funk stuff on here. I love Redwoods. Abundance is really great. Warlock is pretty heavy. Music Box is a total shred fest. I mean, yeah, I mean, the opening two tracks are what they are. I to me they're just not needed. But the rest of it is just great, great, great stuff. Yeah, I enjoyed this quite a bit.
Yeah, especially on like a 75-minute album. I'm not sure you need those two tunes. And if you're going to put two vocal songs, why the first two?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
not leading off the
Yeah.
album, right? That's
Yeah,
Seriously.
I I thought the same thing as Eric. The vocals on "Come Closer" I reminded me of Michael Jackson.
yeah, oh, totally. Yep.
Damian Schmidt does the vocal, and he does the vocal on the first song of Impact Fuse, and it's the same thing. It reminds me of freaking Michael Jackson,
Yeah.
which he came in second on The Voice France. So I don't know
Oh,
what that means. Locking, I hear a snarky puppy vibe until the rap comes in, and I'm just like,
yeah.
I check out from rap. But realistically, it's a good song. It's just ill placed. A rap is just ill placed there.
Yeah.
Quasar might be my favorite. Heavy, killer drum solo from Damian Schmidt, which is ridiculous. Abundance is kind of soft, but it's up tempo. It's got the blazing bass solo from Farco. That's probably one of my favorites too. Um, Redwoods, another cool tune, another sick guitar and bass solos. At least one of them is impressing you in like every song on this album. Um, yeah, Warlock's the heavy one. It's dark and heavy mood, rocked out guitar solo down the stretch. Uh, Music Box, I hear a big time Greg Howe vibe on that one.
Hmm.
Like the melodic playing on that one is so Greg Howe. And Disclosure, it's kind of like a roller coaster ride, but it reminds me of Charon. I don't know if you heard that, Kona. I hear get a Lane Charon vibe on that. That's another great, great track.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Um, Song for Holly, it's got a chick's name in it. How good is it going to be? It's it's a Midland ballad. It's okay. It doesn't bother me. Two Mars is again just a great, great tune, killer drumming, just ridiculous, and another great bass solo. So, I mean, great, great stuff all up and down this album. Well, after you get past those vocal tunes, it's like full on, man. No let up, and that's kind of the way I like it. So I figured you guys would like it if you hung in past those first two tunes.
You were right.
George is probably thinking, I'm really going to screw with these guys. They're going to put those first two tunes on. Like, what, are we listening to the right album here? It's like, yep, hang in there. Just wait.
Yeah, we need like covert cam in all your places when I throw an
Right.
album, so you can see the first reaction.
I literally I thought I was listening to like some kind of weird Michael Jackson song. I was just kind of like, then I'm like, do I have the right one here? I'm like looking. I'm like, no, that's the album cover.
That's
I'm
it.
like, what's going on here?
And you get to the solo and you're like, no, this ain't Michael Jackson.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Oh,
But
Cool.
for anybody out there that's going to try it, you got to hang tough past those first two tunes.
Yes.
Or if you like vocal tunes, you probably like them because they're good tunes. It just don't necessarily fit here to me. But
Yeah.
I
Otherwise,
wonder,
skip right to Quasar, and you'll be in for a ride after that.
I wonder if it was like a marketing thing, like
I don't
an
know.
ill-advised record label.
I mean, this is 2019. I think everybody knows that a fusion vocal tune's not going to sell anything.
Yeah, you're right.
True. Some of these
You
bands
gotta
don't get it
you
though.
gotta
They keep
hang for the
trying.
guitar solo though.
Keep trying.
Yeah, you know what? As many times whatever I think about this album, whenever I play it, I don't skip those songs. I don't.
Yeah.
I
I
might
don't know.
skip two, but I gotta hear that guitar solo in the opener because that takes off, boy.
Cool.
But yeah, I've been
George,
meaning.
I know we don't like to give everything away, but do you have any little hints of what we might be in store for next month?
Yeah, this one we like to give away because it's worth noting. Next month is the third anniversary show. April 2022 is when our first show was. So this April show will be the third anniversary. In accordance with that, we're going to be doing best third albums from bands, and we are going to be having our first guest ever come back and be the guest, which is Professor Nasser.
Ah, cool.
Cool.
So
And Eric,
everyone,
unlike us, he knows what the albums are, and we don't.
I will say that the albums are, you'll know them after the show, but they are more, this, we went a little off on this one. This is more comfort food bands. This is bands that have been on before, I think, if not completely, more or less.
Okay,
So
cool. We're always up for the challenge, regardless, right? So,
it's
so
interesting to look and try and find who had a good third album. It's not like something that comes to mind. So when I was going through, it's like, not you, not you. Oh, you, yeah, okay, not you. So
yeah, usually it's the first two, right, are the really notable ones in most cases. Or, but when, in jazz rock, jazz and fusion, it's like sometimes like some of these bands and artists, they don't really get cut. They'll do like these early albums and it's not quite materialized yet. And then all of a sudden, a little bit later on, boom. But some of them right off the bat just knock it out of the park. So, yeah. So
I
we'll have
mean,
George's the new stuff to check out. We'll have those listed down in the comments for folks to go investigate. And for those of you who are doing the homework, Gary Joyce, get everybody in line, make sure they're doing the homework. List these in the order that you prefer them down in the comments below. It'll be interesting to see what people come up with after they've had a chance to give these a listen. And we'll see you next month here for the third anniversary show of 4Fusion Friday. We want to thank Cone for coming back on and joining us once again. It's always good to see him. And
Pleasure.
visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube all together, all the
All
damn
the damn
time.
time.
Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as a post. And please do hit the like button before you leave. For Eric Porter, Cone Beckham, and George Lamie, I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching us here once again on 4 Fusion Friday. See you next month for more Fusion Talk. Till then, take care, everybody. Bye bye.